little bit in a moment. I use two computers for this setup, and one of them is doing silly stuff. And I'm trying to, while I'm talking to you, is trying to get it to behave kind of thing. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. And this is our weekly time, as usual, for exploring nature-centered folklore, connecting this to your favorite outside sanctuary space, whether it's in your favorite woodland or your garden or up a mountain or up a hill. It's such a lovely day here. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you are. And through that, expressing inspired visions from your sanctuary through your writing, art, craft, performance, problem solving, and vocation. And as advertised, today's Sunday session is Fire Dragons, Serpents, and Snakes Folklore. Now think for a moment on that, because I think I've got the second computer on the verge of behaving itself. I'm just giving it a checkup now. No, it's definitely not there. This is like something from Monty Python, isn't it? Well, as some of you watching may know, I hosted an overall Dragons, Serpents and Snakes folklore session a few months ago towards the beginning of the lockdown, I think. But there was so much content I was trying to get out, and I was jumping from one thing to another because there were the fire serpents, there were the water serpents, the sky serpents, there were your lovely questions. And I really had to bang, 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 go right through it. So today, I'm going to wander, still be a bit of a wander through the stories and traditions of fire dragons and snakes and serpents and a few of their fire traditions. Unfortunately, I did put the offer out, but there isn't any live guests bringing their poems and stories today. So I trust that you'll enjoy my company for a while here. And let's see who's saying hello here. We've got Joanne's here. Hello, John. That's great to see you. And because I was watching her, she was doing a lovely live video and explaining her mission, what she's doing, and gave me some lovely tips, well, giving everybody lovely tips on comfrey, which is kind of off subject, but it was wonderful to relax to before coming to see you here. And hello, there's someone else here. Right, Lema's here. And hello, Lemon, and Gagana, I hope I pronounced that right. And there's Shell here as well. Fabulous. Thank you all for being here. As I say, I'm watching all of the tech here because I'm trying to get one bit of equipment in action, which is refusing to do its thing even now. No, I'm not getting anywhere. Oh, maybe there's something. I think I'm going to be lucky. Let's try. Excuse me for doing this. Anyway. In this session, what I tend to do is cover the fire serpent and the fire serpent within us. And I'm going worldwide with this, well, international anyway, but also relating these international stories to our local stories. And we're fortunate enough to have some quite amazing dragon stories that actually are around us. But first of all, let's consider, what is a dragon? It's something we might know from fairy tales, something we might be scared of. And I have a robin above us who's trying to tell the story as well, because I think the robins are kind of related to the dragons in some way. And but in the West, we think very much of the fire-breathing, four-legged sort of creatures, and they have wings. But in the East, the serpents there, the dragons there, they don't have fire. They have no wings, and they're sort of four-legged. They're highly intelligent, and they're kind of wise. And I think I'll show you a few pictures coming up. There we go. That's the sort of illustration of the fire dragon within us. And I've got labels up here. This is one of these days where I wish I was an octopus. And there we go. That's more the fire dragons that we're kind of more familiar with. And these are the sort of water dragons that we tend to have in the east. But this is a lovely artist impression, I think, of the fire dragons within us. And if you go over to or Clare Island into the abbey there, they have amazing drawings on the walls, very old medieval. I forget what the technical name is. The drawings on the walls, and they have this lovely dragon there. So somehow it came into the abbey as well. Excuse me as I try and get things moving here. This is still, computer is still doing weird things. The second one. Anyway, I'll keep adapting without it because I don't think it's going to be hay for a while. And anyway, water dragons, these lovely creatures here that are really from the east. I'm going to come back to that in the spring because water serpents in spring, especially related to the Imbolc and breeder traditions, are very close with that as well. But in the west, the monsters and the serpents, we seem to think they're tamed by heroes that are in stories. And we have them living in caves, and they hoard treasure, and they breathe fire onto anyone that comes near. And there's one. No, even this computer is kind of, there's definitely some wonky things going on now. Because I'm outside, it's probably the last time to anyone that comes near. So I'm going to have another go at trying to get this thing that I'm trying to get going for you here. And then we'll have some better continuity. Yeah, right. Okay, no, it's still not behaving. It's just going all over the place. Anyway, the fiery dragons are, say, Western influence. And there's, I think some of the imagination has come about because there's actually been a when people were discovering dinosaurs, they thought they were uncovering dragons. Well, there's one that's not a, that's a sort of kindly one. There we go. That's the sort of thing when they dig up a dinosaur, they think that they've uncovered dragons. Hold on to that thought for a while, as I think there's a bit of stability coming on here. Right, and one thing, this is the word dragon, as I try and continue here. And this one is Dracon. The word Dracon means scaly, and I think I've got something on that. And I'm going to be talking about these words here because there's a character of a story. I've told it a few times here. This creature here, Dracon. And the thing with Dracon is that there's a story. It's really centered around County Cavan, kind of in the more select areas south of Ballyconnell. And there was a general story that the sea people, the Fomorians, they were all men. It said they were perhaps from Iceland, Greenland, and Iceland known as the land of men. And it was said that they would come ashore and they would try and lure the Tuatha women with gold rings or with gold, something of fancy, and through doing so, they will woo them and have their way with them. And they would come back later. Of course, these Tuatha women that would get pregnant, and they would come back, and if the women had sons, as when the sons would grow up, they'd be taken out to sea as well, be with the men, whereas the women will be left for the farming. Okay, I'm having to leave this again. This is right. Okay, yeah, computer is definitely blinking again. I'll come back with you. Anyway, Gronya, she'd already lost a mate. She had lost. She hadn't had any sons, so she was kind of a chieftain. And Draken, one of the Fomorians, came ashore to have his way, and there was no way that he was going to get away with it with her. she fought with him. Of course, it was the usual 3 days. And in the battle, she chopped off his head, chopped off his arms, and then she actually buried his head, and then the 2 arms put over his head in a crisscross so that his spirit would go right through to the underworld. It wouldn't come back out and wander around and become a nuisance. Okay, I'm just having another go at getting this second thing going. But, and as I bring up in other stories on the Sunday sessions, that mere battle and the skull with the crossbones, well, I've really explained it all, is kind of the origin of the mythology, the folklore of the creation of the Ulster flag, of the Jolly Rouge, which was the nautical flag of the Knights Templar. And then, of course, we have the Jolly Roger, all part of it as well. So that's I think, where the word dragon might have come from, is from Draken, when he came across in the battle with Draken and Groinia. And I might as well show, there's a sort of an artist's impression, as I say, of Draken. There's one. It's very difficult to find one of Groinia, but there it is. But these stories, they took on a patriarchal form, as a lot of these stories do. And whoops, I'm hitting the wrong thing. I'm going to be with you in a minute. Oh, this is embarrassing. This is not as I... Tech. I don't know. Tech is... Come on. All right. I think I might be making some movements anyway. Right. Here we go. I think I might be on... Right. Excuse me a moment as I kind of change things around a bit here, because I've actually got something working. And this will be a lot easier. Right, because I was kind of talking there, the origin, and what it's transformed into, really, I was saying going patriarchal, is going into the stories of Draken became George, and of course we still have the dragon, and we still might be able to get him up. There he is, and there he is, and of course George was known as the savior of women. And there it is, a very distressed woman in that picture. He saved her from her being devoured. And anyway, I listed snakes. Let's go into snakes a bit. That's a little bit on dragons. And I am cutting snakes out of this session, really, because it would just go on too long. It's a long thing. I really want to concentrate on the dragons and serpents for you. So I'm going to return to snakes folklore in February. So there's a little bit of a snaky imagery. But what is a serpent? Serpent to me is from the Latin, and it's a crawling animal. And this is a lovely scene from Hazelwood. I thought that actual serpent there was actually in the water. A lovely piece of wood, and each time we visited Hazelwood, it would get closer and closer. But the one thing about the snake here, coiled up, and one of the reasons I'll be talking about it in February, is really it's a symbolism of fertility, whereas the serpent is very much related to being sinful. And often the imagery of a dragon, serpent, or snake is that of sin, evil, and the devil. And one thought, the concept of Satan, which is applied often to the Adam and Eve story, the fall of man, if you go back into the history of that time, I don't think the concept of Satan or of an evil underworld was actually invented then. It was all just that one That's just my own feeling from it. If you actually go back, if you get out of the Christian blinkers and look at what the other beliefs are saying and what's been found, where the heck was Satan? It seems to be a kind of a medieval invention more than anything. Anyway, I think I got this. The good news is I'm not going to tamper with that other computer. We're up and running. So let's have a look to see what you're saying at the moment. I know Lehman was here. Gwyn's here. Oh, I don't think you've been on before. Hi, Gwyn. Patricia's here. How you doing there, Vancouver Island? Brittany here. And Sherry, good morning to you all. And thanks very much for your lovely viewing and patience at the moment. Anyway, one of my favorite stories, dragon stories, is it's really related to the Grand Conception, which is the point of midwinter. I'll be going more into that story. I have done in past sessions, but it's the Grand Conception is where the debris of this year past is kind of transformed, ready for the spring to be born the following Imbolc. And that is told sometimes in a dragon or a serpenty imagery, and certainly the story of Doida, the Dagda that I share here sometimes, very much part of it. And it all happens locally, just up the road from here, within the hills of Caish here, Caish Coran. You see all those caves there. And beyond that, beyond those caves, and especially a big one there, is said to be a mythological inner lock. And inside the block there is the flucture of fire in the center. I actually threw that in there, but that's a lock inside the cave. The flucture of fire in the center. And that's what drew the Doida, the Dagda, into the warm water through the days leading up to midwinter, into the time of Yule. And it was the point of the flucture at its hottest and warmest point is when the Doida mated with the hag that you may well know as the Morrigan, but I tend to speak of, let's get this back up, and I tend to speak of as the Morna Coracue, the more, let's go, this is a bit of I use this illustration, the more being large, pretty much infinite. The curry, which a curry can be a vessel, it can be a cooking pot, the curry pot, it can be a valley, it can be a hollow hill, and it's certainly within a cave. So you've got the almighty large something within the large cave is the Ku, is the protector, the one that protects. And you've probably heard the word kayak. And if you go back even with the word kayak, or kayak as some people say, that really means the builder of hills, builder of mountains. And when you got these hills and mountains, especially around here with the limestone, they're going to be hollow. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a lot more about that stuff when we get up to the midwinter, towards the solstice. But to me, as I say, it could be turned around into a dragon story. And there's this dragon that's in the cave. And when I go up to these caves here, when I go to the caves here, children quite often ask me, can you tell me a story of the dragons here, please? I often get that. And one of the common central themes of the fiery dragon and the serpent stories is that they are guardians of sacred places, like this sort of wild lad is here. And in these stories, they seem to be guarding treasure. I love that illustration. Oh, that's going to come up shortly anyway. The garden of treasure. And perhaps our most famous local story, though, is the, if I can pronounce it, Ellen Tracken. Now, this has got various spellings and pronunciations. I think I can bring up more. Here's, oh, first let's show you this one. As I say, the Morna Coracuen, sometimes known as the Morigronia. But the Gronia is related very much to the harvest and the browning of the cereals, of the barley, the rye, and the oats, and of course in later times the wheat. So it's an interesting, the person of the darkness would be related to Queen Goddess Gronia. But most people talk of the Morrigan, which came, I think is a word that really came out of the Celtic Romance revival from the early 19th century onwards. But I just love, to me, it's a personal preference. The Morna Coracuen. I love these old phrases because instead of, to me, but Morrigan, you're talking about a person, a creature, you're talking about a thing. And this is what we do in modern language. The Morna Coracuen, to me, you're explaining a condition. You're not really describing a person. It's a condition where there's an entity, and there's this entity that you can actually put into an image that you might call a Morrigan. And I just love, I think we forget about thinking about conditions. And I think this is a difference, as I'm often repeating, linear thinking or spiral or circular thinking. Go for the circular, the Morna Coracuen kind of wins the day. Anyway, let's go on with Eileen Trecken. And there we go. She's Eileen Trecken. There's three sort of variations on her word. And do I have a picture of her? I think I flashed it up for you a little bit earlier. Let's see if I can get her up again. There's a sort of an artist drawing. And what do you see about that? There you go, three heads, three-headed dragon. And the basic story is that she came out of the Ornagot Cave, which is not that far away from me. It's the royal area, what they call the royal area, Rathcrawn in Roscommon. Excuse me, I didn't switch the phone off. Okay, I'll let that fly. Goodness, it is a day of text, isn't it? I do excuse on that. They won't go away. Sorry about that. Right, there we go. Anyway, I'll call them back later. The basic story of Ellen comes from the Ornagot Cave there. And this is very much a story, a Halloween story, a Samhain night story. And how she got there has various stories. I'm not going to cover that much at the moment. But it's said that if you've heard of the story of Talatka, Hill of Ward in Meath, I'm going to be covering this with the Samhain traditions in a couple of weeks' time. But she has a similar story, unfortunately, and it's a rape story. It's one of the stories. Three lads, and with Talatka, when her baby was born, she actually died in childbirth, and that's how she became the goddess of the fire from Talatka. Quite similar here as well with Ellen, because with her, one of the stories is that her mother, unfortunately, was raped, and she was born actually from her mother with these three dragon heads. That's one of the stories. The other one is that she was very much a shy, oppressed little girl, and she went into the Ornagot Cave right here. And I'm going to show some pictures inside of there. But when she was inside of there, she met an elderly dragon. And the elderly dragon was the keeper of the waste from the year, who transformed it into the life for the next year, and really needed to pass that spirit on. And so there was this shy little girl who didn't seem to have a purpose in life, had sneaked into this cave to get away from it all, was suddenly transformed into this three-headed dragon because of a spell of the elder that was in the cave. And so she took on the role of leaving the land, leaving the cave around Halloween, around Samhain, And it's said that she would leave, and she kind of went to Talaka, which I'm going to be talking about, and she also went to Emin I haven't got, let's see, have I got Emin Makkah? There's Emin Makkah. You might be familiar if you visited that, way up there in Northern Ireland there. Antrim, isn't it? And it's a place of a fire goddess anyway. And here's one as well. This one is where Talaka is. That's the Hill of Ward, Hill of Talaka. So it's said that she would come out of the cave here, would fly out. That's her flying away with the triple heads. And there's another one I think is absolutely lovely. And she would be providing the fires there. And those fires were the fires, it was said, that would kind of burn, would transform the waste from the year to go into the ground and fertilize it and enable the grand conception of midwinter ready for the Imbolc. And another story with Ellen is she was helped by goblins and copper red birds. So out she would come, again, let's get the picture up, out she would come flying up, and I haven't found a picture. It was said that, I don't know what the goblins would do, but certainly the copper red birds, it said, would accompany her and help distribute the fire. And to me, doesn't that sound a bit like, has some amazing parallels with Santa's helpers, the elves, and the flying reindeer? I'm wondering how much of that is interlinked, because a lot of it's folklore and stories. They do kind of play around, don't they? Anyway, and again, I haven't got a picture of him again, I don't think. Have I got a picture of him? Oh, there he is. He's quite known as the bard that ended up taming the waters when the Milesians, the sons of Mil, came ashore, and I've told that a few times. Well, it's said that he actually approached, now this is where the whole thing gets patriarchal, I'll explain that why. It's said that he approached the three-headed dragon and Ellen, and tamed it and stopped the fire. It's very similar, I suppose, to Patrick, who got rid of the snake. Same idea, same concept, same belief, same intent. And of course, it was all told by the medieval scribes, which I often talk about, how the scribes themselves had entered into a new tradition of medieval patriarchal storytelling through the scribing. And the scribing itself, as I often say, it's about writing along in lines. The storytellers were telling their stories as cycles, and everything was going around. Spirals and cycles is the way that stories are told, and the rambling. And I always say, you know, this is the place in Ireland for the storytelling, and you can find it out immediately if you actually go up to someone and you're lost. Of course, people have their sat navs and Google Maps now, but it used to be if you were lost, you would go up to someone you see walking in the street. Oh, it's a local. They would know the area. Let's find out exactly where to go, where we're getting to. And of course, where you go that way, you go that way, you get way. You're just sent around in circles, because that is the condition, I think, especially when you're this side of the Shannon. That's the condition that you live with here. But the Saxon-based, I suppose, medieval patriarchal way was write it out. You have beginnings and ends, and it sort of breaks up the cycle. And that, to me, is what's very much the patriarchal way is linear. And it's funny, since it's sort of election time, doesn't that come out with a competing? You got one side of the people, they want jobs, they want acquisition, they want to know something from beginning to end. Whereas the caring people, they just want this overall cycle of care around them. And the one thing with the medieval patriarchal stories, they would take these caring traditions like the dragon and serpent traditions, which really were imageries to explain our conditions of the cycles and the seasons of the year, but put them into a linear form that you have God or Jesus on one side, and you have the devil and the Satan and the serpent weight on the other side. And so, unfortunately, this sort of gets rid. Was a real challenge for the triple goddess, the feminine, the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And a lot of you women that will be watching now are probably understanding that symbolism. And another one, and I picked this recently, definition, but how true it is, thinking of the triple femininity as mother, mentor, and enchantress. And being a mother is certainly the physical, being the mother, but it's not essential. Some women, a lot of women, more women now choose not to actually have children, but they still live a life. They still have experience. They still help. They still care. They still serve. And as they learn through the service, they become mentors, and then they become enchantresses, which means they're not really putting spells on people as enchanters. This is what witches are accused of, isn't it? You remember again, we're talking medieval times, aren't we? Medieval times of burning the witches, especially late medieval. And that really, as a quote someone made in last week, and it really tells it, they weren't burning witches, they were burning women. So the enchantress is a sort of evolved from mentor to the inspiration of a person's way, their spirituality, and their confidence in their inspiration and their guidance. And there was three here. This is actually on Talaka again. There's three Australians that were in a group, and I thought that was lovely. And to me, amongst them, and I leave you to guess who, there is definitely a mother, a mentor, and an enchantress with those three. So that's the real living form, right on the hill of Talaka. Anyway, I'm sort of waffling on that a bit. And another Ellen story is that, and this is the one I love of all, is that she didn't come out. She didn't just come out the cave, that she actually traveled. They say, oh, this one's playing up again, is that she actually traveled along that cave. I showed you the entrance earlier. And the cave itself, it went up to the Cache Caves that are just here, that there was actually a passageway. So what she would do, what Ellen would do at one time, instead of coming out as a triple dragon, she may have been a triple dragon, but she would go through, here we go, there's the start of it. If you go, people who've been down Ornagot Cave, they'll understand what I'm showing here, because it goes down and down, and some people go down there for their Halloween or one experience. And unfortunately, a JCB went down in a field and it kind of blocked up the continuation, but it was said that it kept going, and it would come out in Kishkoran here. And when she came, and of course the trek wasn't something that was done in a day, it was a slow trek, a very contemplating trek with the fire and the heat and the debris going on, the spirit of the debris. And then by the time she got into the cave, her fire and herself became water. And ready then as water, where the mountain hag, the Kaliak had blessed the dragon fire to become water, maybe the fire of the Fluctor, as I pointed out earlier. And this was ready for Imbolc to provide fertility for the spring ahead. Now let's see what you're saying amongst all that. There's a few extra comments. Terilyn, good morning. Been a few weeks and happy to be back, and glad to have you back, Terilyn. Thank you. And Gwyn is enjoying herself here. I thank you for the awesome. And then Gwyn, is that where we get the crossbones? Yeah, you're going back to the Draken and Groinia, and I'm trying to avoid making a huge story out of it, because I'll be going on for 2 hours here. But it is one of my favorite stories, so I do often pop it in. The idea, anybody here been to, I can't remember the name of the graveyard, it's on Boer Island, and you have the Janus figure. And I haven't got a Janus figure to show you at the moment, but with the Janus figure, it's the two faces, And if you see that there, it looked like a skull, and you've got the crossed arms, which to me is very much symbolism, again, of the Draken that is buried by Groinia. And that's not the only one. If you actually go around the lower Loch Earn, it's strange it's lower Loch Earn because it's the north end, and there's various graveyards around there, and also in the also in the upper Loch Earn too. I'm thinking the Gowloon, where there's graveyards there, and you'll see lots of stones like that with the kind of skull and the arm. I used to think it was the legs, but someone pointed out, no, you couldn't twist the legs off in the same way. So, yes, and to me, that's a story that would have been an imagery, spread that imagery. And Groinia did that for the reason of protection of the Draken spirit. Some women, I suppose feminist women might say, will be looking at as bringing back the balance, so that you wouldn't have the Draken spirit overwhelming everything, especially the land, because they got their land, and it's the land that produces the food. It's the land for the farming, but it is the sea in its own way that has the men doing what the men do. I haven't fully gone into that because we actually have things like Poseidon, and we got Manalur. There were various men, goddesses, Manalur, that are related to the sea. But then we have Mare itself, and I've gone into that. Mare, Sea, Mary. That's another story itself. But anyway, this would have stuck in people's minds of the idea of this being a protector. And somehow it got spread. It became a mascot, and that mascot became a flag. And it seems to have got adopted into the Ulster flag, that became the Patrick's flag, became the cross flag. And then for safety at sea, the Knights Templar, when they were chased out of France, they would sail with the gold cross with the Jolly Rouge, the red background. Then the British Navy adopted that, but they put a black background to it. And that was put onto ships when they were on a mercy mission. That's where you get the SOS, Save Our Souls, because when the flag was up, these boats were on to save people's souls. But unfortunately, the pirates performed trickery by putting a similar flag up, and they would raid these Navy ships, because if they rescued a ship on the mercy mission, there'd probably be some loot and a bounty. So that's a quick version of that one. It's all going away from Serpents, so I better get back onto the Serpents here for you. I've got a banner that shouldn't be up. There we go. Right, to get back into serpenting, it's something I usually big. I'm a bit of stuck needle with this one coming up with now, but it's the astrology thing, the dragons in astrology, the nodes in our dragon path. And many Westerners tend to ignore these, the nodes. There you are. You might be familiar with the nodes. Eastern astrologers that focus on them intensely. But for someone starting a reading, perhaps the most important part they should start on is look at a person's node. I think why astrologers are reluctant is it's outside the usual Jungian style of analysis that Western astrologers give birth charts. But really, those nodes, they're a story path. They're our story path. They're like a prophecy of our wisdom that we've learned in the past. It's a prophecy of our present and the map of our future. The South Node, for instance, is sometimes described as our past karma, and the umbilical cord that's connects our sort of invisible womb to our home, to the kayak, to the spirit, to even the dragon inside the hills, on the womb where we were born, that we are umbilically connected to the one beautiful woman. I'm quoting that from the old Tale of the Trees, Lush the Rowan. So that of our past karma that is going through us, through our nodes, and the north nodes as our future karma. Let's bring that to show you a bit up. and karma that's to be dealt with, to be experienced. And I call the North Node, that's our story. That's our story unraveling. That's our adventure. That's our wilding. Anyway, I'll be bringing this up in the other sessions. And so I'll move on. Right. I think really going from that, I would just spend a few moments talking about Kundalini. There's people here watching, you're probably very much into the Kundalini meditations yourself and yoga in some way. And of course, I love it. It's an excuse to bring this picture up. It all starts with the sleeping serpent coiled 3.5 times around the base of the spine, the root chakra. So I had to bring this up as an illustration of, and this is from Hazelwood as well, and there's a few trees like this, the root chakra. Absolutely brilliant. I love that picture. And the name Kundala is linked to the, I gather, it means coiled anyway. It means coiled. Let's see if I can get some sort of coily link here. It's reluctant. I really am having the techies today. There we go. There we go. This is something you're probably more familiar with. Meaning coiled anyway. And there we have the coiling. And two snakes, two serpents, coiling around there. And it's said to be Hindu, but I think it's linked more to Persian, Babylonian, even the what we call the northern shamans, the Siberian shamans. I think a lot of this wisdom philosophy is something that they've worked with and was passed along. It's natural. It seems to be a natural human wisdom to pass along. And so the journey, it's like our journey, not only being a dragon, but almost like as if it's a coiled snake, and the uncoiling into spiritual maturation, I suppose we'll call it. Two snakes around a star, and they're crossing each other. Do they do that? They cross each other 7 times. You'll know more about this with this, the 7 chakra points. So the god, you have the goddess spirit awakened, climbs upward until she reaches a crown chakra at the top of the head, and she pierces each chakra and brings an awakening to us. And of course, the question is that brings us back to the dragons. Is this the releasing the fire in our head? Anyway, I think that when her journey is complete, the whole Kundalini journey is complete, that's said to be the way to enlightenment, the fire being the way to enlightenment, burning the waste, burning the debris, ready for the grand conception, not only of new life, but our new sort of empowerment for the life of the year ahead. It's our own transformation. Heat transforms, it gets rid of diseases. We have fever that gets rid of diseases. It's our whole heating, our whole awareness, and it's where we make our affirmations, I suppose. The life force, being closest to the life force. Some people say Sawan, but to me, I think the closest to the life force is that grand conception at midwinter, whereas the Sawan sort of triggers us to go underground and get rid of that debris. It's that neutral time ready for that great conception. So when you get the image of the 2 serpents going around here, there we go. There's another one here, if I can get it. Oh, come on up. Don't be shy. There you go. The 2 seconds going around the spine. And what have I got here? Oh, well, that's the transformation. The one thing I think, here we go. There's a nice picture I was looking up. There's a nice imagery of the fire in their head, the whole transformation there. But to me, this all very much lines up to the helix, the double helix, our DNA. And then from that, I can't help but think about the Caudaceous symbol, the medical symbol. Again, symbolically, the serpent has been considered to be the power beneath the earth that makes plants grow, but also to bring up from that root all the healing that we need. So maybe in winter, this is a lovely one. I'm going to bring this one up. That the energy of conception that converts or fires up the fallen waste as it becomes the new life in spring. Here's the new life of water. Remembering I was mentioning earlier about Ellen going through the cave from Ornagot up to Caish and being transformed into water. And you can perhaps imagine that as being what was Ellen's fire is now the water that's now going to enter the rivers and it's going to enter the weather and it's going to pour down and it's going to give the fertility for the year ahead. Lovely. Yeah, Caudacious, as I say, symbol of healing, medicine, and oath, and it's an excuse to bring that one up. And because in classical Greek writings, it's claimed that Hermes inherited the spirit of the Caudacious, Caduceus, to become the conductor of souls. So there's a lovely image of it being the conductor of souls. So is the serpent, the fiery serpent, the conductor of our souls? And of course, that would be very Halloween, a thought for the Halloween and the Samhain. Is it a time when we allow our souls to be conducted? Or is it a time when our souls are being guided and we're being brought close together? And it's said here, and this is possibly what's going in this picture, that through his magic staff that serpent is around, the through calling of the, excuse me, of a, must take another drink, otherwise I won't be able to speak to you. So here we go. Here's Hermes with his staff bringing up the serpent so they can transmit enough healing power that's so powerful it could even raise the dead up from Hades, the dead up maybe from the pool of water, and there's a lot of stories about that. And in Greeks, Egyptians especially, maybe onto the Persians, the serpents are the symbols of eternity. And even if we consider the snake here shedding an old skin as a symbol of shedding the decaying old while celebrating the vibrant, fresh newborn of the next spring that's conceived of the midwinter. So I look forward to talking, going further with this, with the water serpents next February. I go much more into that. Okay, is there any more comments, any questions from you? Is the waffle going down okay? I trust you're enjoying that. Anyway, I'm going on to the whole Tour de Danann and the underground now, because that is quite spectacular in itself. And they were, the Tour de Danann, they were being sent to the underground. Here's a bit of an underground image. And what do you see there? Because the story of the Doida going on underground into the folklore of the lock that's inside of the Kishkoran hill here, that's very serpenty, I think. And you got all these stories that were picked up by these medieval saints. And to me, these saints, I mean, that's the thing. That's a real sales line, isn't it? To me, these were these scribes. This was just like the beginning of the digital age. You remember when the computers came in with the games and home computers in the 1980s, and then we had the first printed stuff coming into people's homes in 1900, I suppose, when printing machines becoming cheap. All these great revolutions, of course, scribing, the idea of being able to take these oral sounds and put something down in a linear form, the Gospels, the Scripture, the stories, and these scribes, they would then proclaim that their books were powerful. And the books became the guiding voices. And the books were then ordered to become the flames of the century serpents within us. I had a lovely picture. I wonder if I can pick it up. This is the century, the flames. This is the flames of our senses. Imagine our senses and what comes out if we allow our voice to come out. There we have the flames of our voice coming out as a serpent. That is a serpent that we can all be. I believe. But, of course, there we have, that's the one I wanted. There we have this good old scribe, poor serpent there on the left, if you can see it. The scribe is writing out the serpent, writing out the dragon, just banishing it, trying to banish it through writing, banish it out of people's traditions, changing it, giving it a patriarchal slant. That suddenly Ellen suddenly becomes male, for one, in some of the stories. And of course, these scribes are claiming the powers and promise of eternal life, and paradise is offered beyond these devilish serpents. You know, the serpents, as I've been saying, is very much about eternal life. This is life because when we pass on, when we leave our body, just basic physics tells us that nothing is destroyed. It just becomes something else. The life moves on. And fire to water, water to trees and plants. It just, everything, the energy becomes something else. But again, more about that in February. But here we have the dragon realm, the serpents, the secret guardian of folklore. And if you believe in I hope you're not enchanted believing that your inner Kundalini serpent causes you a lure into eating people, maybe. You're not lured into thinking that serpent is pure evil. I kind of urge that no saint, no preacher causes your own inner serpent to become shy. Because what happens when you're shy, you could end up hiding yourself into a cave, into a spiral, and you might actually meet Ellen there, and Ellen could transform you into a triple-headed dragon. Now, how about that? How would you treat that? But of course, these dragons, they're Satan, they're the devil, and related in a way to snakes. But if you think of snakes, people think of snakes and venom, but less than 10% of the species of snakes out there carry poisonous venom. Most snakes are shy of humans anyway, and they're not carrying venom. So I think we can be confident that less than 10% of humans are harmful. We're essential. So don't let the inner. So do let that inner Kundalini serpent rise within you. Let it rise and have trust in it. And then we come to understand this as a cyclical pattern of hibernation and regeneration pattern that's within our sanctuary. And we understand our ability to carry venom. It's not a poisonous venom, but it's a venom of care, of healing, regenerating voice, and regenerating force that can only become powerful when we become confident in it. And it's not destructive, it's a balancer. And I have to show this one. This is two very confident women who entered the cave. Oh, and they got Claire's there. So that's a lovely one. The ability of coming out and being full of care, healing, and regenerative. Look at those smiles. The transformation of being down there and then, oh, and it got cave. But if we dissolve the denial of being of nature and growing closer to the earth, we always do. If we become disconnected, we always have that way to awaken the serpent within. And I do believe that our own society could begin to reverse and revere the symbol of the dragon and the snake towards being healing, being regenerative, rather than destructive, and let go of the destructive and the evil interpretation. And we can do that through contemplation, dreams, practice, and do that within our chosen sanctuary. Dragon and serpent goddesses and gods, they don't die. They can only transform into something else, something much more wonderful. I believe the serpent symbols awaken us so that we realize we're part of circles, we are spirals, we're not of straight lines. We cannot be calibrated, calculated, or controlled. We are freedom, we are life, we are love, we are infinity. And so that, my friends, is what I'm going to share with you about dragons, serpents, and snakes today. And how are you doing there? Any questions before I'm going to talk about what's coming up next? And so thanks for holding on and watching that. Anyway, that is, and I'll be coming back to that, to say, with water serpents after a whole regeneration time, because we're going into Samhain and that whole underground time for us, hibernation time, and going on to the grand conception at midwinter, and then I'll come back with the serpents in spring. Anyway, can I help you please? First of all, the Karakuri Labyrinth Gardens and Sunday Session costs are brought. I managed to put these together despite equipment breaking down, but it's brought to you by subscribers and donations. And for subscribers, and let's see if I have to bring this up, this moment of this. I think that's irrelevant. Yes, if you can, anyone who can spare it, if you can go onto the membership, patreon.com, Woodland Bard. It really does help as far as keeping this going, keeping the Labyrinth Gardens going. And I'm also developing the She, Water, and Tree Folklore course. And this course is going to take these Sunday session subjects, and I'm going to take them into much more depth. I've started working on the framework of this already, because even today, I've only touched on the surface of these subjects over dragons and serpents. There's a lot more that I would love to share with you. And I think a course is a way to do this. And the course media that I'll be creating and presenting for you, it'll be ever increasing. There'll be videos, podcasts, slides, ebooks, and Zoom-like course meetings where we can get together more intimately rather than a broadcast like this. And there'll be some optional projects that you'll be able to have a go at so you can build up the wisdom yourself. So I'm drawing this up because the nights are getting longer. I've got more time to do that now, less time in the garden. So if you can go to the Patreon, I really appreciate it, for €1, a pound, or $1 a month. And the links are all over the Karakuri Cottage website as well. Do I have that? That you get into it. There we go. There's the Karakuri Sessions Facebook group there. And we have the channel, Karakuri channel, there, and Spotify. It goes out. This is an audio version that goes out here every week as well. So people might do their housework to me blabbing away here. Let's see. Anyway, to get back onto what's coming up in the weeks ahead. Next week, I'm looking forward to this one. This is the 25th of October, next Sunday. Got the folklore of crows, ravens, and other corvids. Not COVIDs, corvids. And we had to cancel that last year, so I'm glad to be able to do that online this year. And then the jolly 1st of November, going into Samhain traditions, and bringing your own poems and stories for that. Please submit them to me. Let's see if we can get people on live for that one. And then the following 8th of November, because I can't do the lighted labyrinth here, make it a general Samhain gathering, a kind of ad hoc. You contribute your stories, your poems. Please make this your own session. It'd be nice to give my voice a break. 8th of November. And then another one I'm getting excited about is 15th of November. It's going to be the introduction to harps and bardic folklore. That's mainly going to be Claire. I'm going to talk a bit about the bards at Kish Coran and about Coran the harper himself. But then Claire is going to lead you into how to be confident with music. You don't have to be a maestro to get started. If you can just pluck one string, you're a musician. If you can tap just one thing, you're a musician. And Claire's going to have a session taking you through this. So, how are we doing here? Sherry, thanks for the Tales Day. Thank you for being here. Thanks everyone for being here to be part of the rambling that I've been doing here. And it's a subject I love. And as I say, if for those that are sponsors donating, I'll put much more into the course, and of course you can come back to this in your own time. And I think you'll enjoy following it. And it's something you could do over a few years even, and keep coming back to it for a few moments. Well, thank you again for being with us today. And for those who come on later and watching the archive, please keep commenting here, ask your questions, because I'm still going to be watching the comments and answering questions over the next few days whenever they appear. The archive, there's always the archive here. You can watch any of these past Sunday sessions. So it leaves for me to say, enjoy a safe week of wonder, inspiration, celebration, and all those lovely enchantments. So until next Sunday, do play well, keep well, and bye.